It looks like I've lost everybody. Nope, there's Miriam. Okay. Um, well, this week, hi, Brian. You're in the San Francisco Bridge. And Richard, when he showed me his picture before, was standing on the moon. So we have people everywhere. We're international and interglobe. How do you say it? Interglacial,
Yeah,
intergalactical, inter
Galactica.
the galactics. Okay, so today we're looking at the portion Vayeshev. We've read about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and now we're going into the story of Jacob's favorite son and the rest of the boys. Who was his favorite son?
Joseph.
Good one. So we're going to hear what happens with Joseph and how that can relate to our lives. You know, it's really, really important. I want you to think of this when we're reading. We're just reading about local guys, the neighborhood boy chicks. You know, these are everyday people like you and I. We make mistakes, we get into trouble, we do the wrong things, we mess up our families, and God is going to show us that how all those experiences help us. Help us first of all to not make the same mistakes, and then if we do, we recognize them and to know that God has given us the solution. So let's, without further ado, let me share the screen. Brian, can you put yourself on mute in case people come into your room? And here we begin. So it says Jacob, Yashuv, he settled. Shev is like to sit down. You're settling in the land where his father had sojourned. Sojourn has more of the idea of being on a journey, the land of Canaan, because we know that Jacob started there and he went to his uncle Laban for 20 years and then he's back. This then is it says Toldot, the history, the story, the descendants. It's the line of Jacob. So we read, and it begins immediately. 17 years of age, Joseph tended the flock. So immediately we're given a picture. Joseph is his favorite. Joseph tended the flocks with his brother as a helper to the sons of his father's wives. Now, these were the wives, Bilhah and Zilpah, who were the concubines, the maids of Leah, and not the first wives. Leah and Rachel were the first wives. Leah was first, and then Rachel was second, because the older one had to come first, even though Rachel was the most beloved. Joseph brought bad reports. It says the word de, debartim, debartam, which is like words, ra'ah, bad. He spoke badly about them to their father. He was a brat. Now, Israel loved Joseph the best of all his sons. It says he was a child of his old age, but they were all children of his old age. What it means that he was his favorite child in his old age. And to even go further, he made him nobody knows what the name pasim, what it really means. Some say it was a tunic or a coat of long sleeves. Some say it was a coat of many colors. Some say here it's an ornamented. All we know that it was a different cloak, and the reason was, I guess his father saw something in Joseph and was setting him apart from the other boys. I when we look back at all the things that he did during his life, he brought order to the home of Potiphar. He brought order in the prison. He was an administrator. He was somebody who knew how to keep things in order, and I think his father must have recognized that. So he made him a special tunic. But he also stayed at home. He stayed learning about the accounts. He stayed learning from his father all these things. He didn't go into the field with the flocks with his brothers. So he was set apart. And when you set one apart from the others, visibly and with more attention, that's going to be the it's a reason for hatred and jealousy and envy and all these things to occur. So when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of his brothers, they hated him. They couldn't even speak. The word here is dabro, to speak to him, leshalom. They couldn't even speak a word of peace to him. That's how upset they were. Now, one day Joseph has a dream and he tells it to his brothers, and they hate him even more. You would think, sometimes something exciting happens to me and I want to tell everybody because I'm so excited. But I have to be careful because when people don't like you or are envious or have not, don't know your heart, they may be jealous and hate you even more as this happened here. So we have to also use a little bit of sechel. But Joseph was young, spoiled. He had no sechel. He was a teenager. And he said to them, listen to this dream I've dreamed. We were binding sheaves in the field, all of us. There we were. When suddenly my sheaf stood up and remained upright, while your sheaves gathered around and bowed low to my sheaf. I can imagine. And his brothers answers, do you mean to reign over us? Do you mean to rule over us? And I looked at the Hebrew here. The thing I love about Hebrew is that it's a language of pictures. And even though I don't speak it, I can read it and you can get ideas. Look what it says here. V'amru lo, they spoke to him, Achaiv, to his brothers, Melech Timlach. So you have the same word, melech, twice. In Hebrew, when things are repeated, if it's repeated once, it has a certain strength. If it's repeated twice, it's stronger. And if it's repeated 3 times, it's strongest. So here, it's repeated twice. Do you mean to be the king? You're going to rule over us? Over Alenu? And then, do you mean? And then it says it again. Do you mean to rule over us? And the word is mashol. And then here it says tim shol. So the word is repeated again. It's like, comes from that word. Are you going to have dominion over us? Who do you think you are? And they hated him even more for his talk about his dreams. And then he dreams another dream and tells it to his brothers. Again, you'd think he would learn. It's like I don't know if he was so naive or so innocent that he didn't get it. And his father was a little bit like that, as we're going to see in a minute. And he says, look, I've had another dream. And this time, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me.
They must have already, I mean, it's obvious they've seen Jacob's preference over them. So they had to have seen it, and they see him in this cloak and the whole thing. So it's maybe had his father, been stronger and restrained himself from showing favoritism, they wouldn't have resented these things. But
Exactly.
they saw that his father preferred him.
Exactly. You're going to hear that from our rabbi this coming Shabbat. Why didn't they say anything to him? Why didn't they say anything to the father? But it's interesting when it says here, and this time the sun, the moon, so the sun represented the father. The moon, it says here, I and your mother, the moon, but Rachel was already gone. So which mother? Maybe Leah. The sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told it to his father and brothers, his father berated him. What, he said to him, what is this dream you have dreamed? Are we to come, I and your mother and brothers, and bow low to you to the ground? So his brothers were angry with him. And his father kept the matter in mind. His father didn't say a word. He kept it in mind because he had special hopes for his son. Maybe he had a vision. Who knows? Once, when his brothers had gone to pasture their father's flock at Shechem, we know what happened in Shechem, Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers are pasturing at Shechem. Come and I will send you to them." Imagine! He knew, did he not know the the jealousy and the anger that these boys held against him? Why would he send them there alone? Doesn't say he went with his servants, doesn't say he went with anyone. But here, what is Joseph answer? One of my favorite words in the Bible. Hineni, here I am. If there's anything we need to say to God, if we truly want to follow him, no matter what, we say, Hineni. I have said that over and over. Here I am, God. Use me. And he said to him, go and see how your brothers are, and how the flocks are faring, and bring me back word. So he sent him from the valley of Hebron. And when he reached Shechem, a man came upon him, wandering in the fields. The man asked, what are you looking for? I guess he must have really been lost. We don't know who this man was. They don't give a name. But there's always somebody there to guide us on our path. And he answered, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they're pasturing? And the man said, they have gone from here, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. So Joseph followed his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and before he came close to them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one, that's how much they hated him. And this doesn't happen overnight. This is a constant feeding. You have to feed hatred to get to the point where you want to murder somebody, and especially someone in your family. They said to one another, oh, look, here comes the dreamer. Come on now, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits. And we can say a savage beast devoured him. Let's see what becomes of his dreams then. But Reuben, the firstborn, when he heard it, he tried to save him from them, and he said, let's not take his life. Reuben went on, shed no blood. Cast him into the pit out in the wilderness, but don't touch him yourselves. He intended to save him from them and restore him to his father. He had a good heart. He was the firstborn. He should have been the most angry because Jacob was giving the position of Reuben to Joseph. And yet, this is what Reuben said to him. That, I take my hat off to Reuben. When Joseph came up to his brothers, they stripped him of his tunic, the ornamented tunic that he was wearing, and they took him and cast him into the pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down and they had a meal. Looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelim, coming from Gilead, their camels bearing gum and balm and laudanum to take to Egypt. Then Judah is going to play a big part in this story. Judah said to his brothers, what do we gain by killing our brother and covering up his blood? Let us sell him to the Ishmaelim. Let's not do away with him ourselves. After all, he is our brother. He is our own flesh. So his brothers agreed. Well then, I don't think it was right away that they did that, because then it says Midianite traders passed by. They were not Ishmaelim. So this was another group of traders that passed by. The Ishmaelites, I'm not sure how this is, because look what it says. When Midianite traders passed by, they pulled Joseph out of the pit. They sold Joseph for 20 pieces to the Ishmaelites who brought Joseph to Egypt.
Yeah, I
So,
don't understand this whole thing.
yeah, well, it looks like, I remember reading about it once, that there were different traders and they traded amongst each other. One would sell to the Ishmaelites would trade to the Midianites. I guess it depended on who they knew had better buyers for their products.
Maybe.
But when Reuben went back to the pit, he saw that Joseph was not in there, and he tore his clothes. Returning to his brothers, he said, "The boy is gone. What am I to do?" Then they took Joseph's tunic, slaughtered a kid, and dipped the tunic into the blood. Now, there's something that I read in this verse that we're going to see a repetition of in the next verse, which is a wonderful teaching in the Torah. They had the coat of many colors, the ornamented tunic that they were going to take their father. Oh no, they had they dipped the tunic in the blood. They had this tunic taken to their father, and they said, "We found this. Please examine it. Is it not your son's tunic? Or is it your son's tunic or not?" The word for examine, it says here, is hakerna, which means, do you recognize it? Do you recognize that this is the tunic that you gave to your son? He did. And the same word, yak, yak, the kuf and the resh. He recognized it and said, "My son's tunic." A savage beast devoured him, and Joseph was torn by a beast. So I want you to remember that, because in the next chapter, we're going to see the same expression, hakerna, okay? Recognize. It's a strong point that the Torah is making here. It's only two places in the Torah where you find this expression. Jacob tore his clothes. I think that's where we get the idea at a shiva, or when somebody dies, they come in and they cut the tie, or they cut the scarf. He rent his clothes, he tore his clothes, put sackcloth on, and observed mourning for his son many days. All his sons, and it says daughters. See, he didn't have only Dinah. He had other sons, other daughters, but they're never mentioned. So all his sons and daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. I know someone who just lost the second of their two children, and they could not be comforted. "I will go down mourning to my son in Sheol." And so his father bewailed, cried, wailed. This woman was wailing when she lost her second child, wailing. In the meantime, the Midianites sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, who was a courtier of, how do you say, courtier of Pharaoh.
Courtier, yeah, I think courtier.
Yeah. And his prefect. He was high up with Pharaoh. Now, all of a sudden, we leave about Joseph and Jude and Jacob, and we move to Judah. Judah left his brothers. He probably couldn't stand what happened. And he camped near an Adullamite whose name was Hira. There, Judah sees the daughter of a certain Canaanite. Judah, who knows not to marry the Canaanites. He would have known that from his father Jacob. Her name was Shua, and he took her into his household as a wife, and he cohabitated with her. In those days, all you had to do was go into a woman, have sex with her, live with her, and she became your wife. No big hullabaloo like the big weddings of today. She conceived and bore a son. His name was Er. She conceived again and bore another son. His name was Onan. Once again she bore a son and named him Shelah. He was at Cheziv when she bore him. Now Judah got a wife for Er, his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Er, Judah's firstborn, was displeasing to God. It doesn't say what he did. And God took his life. That must have been pretty serious character flaw in Er, coming from the Canaanite wife who raises the boys, the children. And God took his life. Then Judah said to Onan, this was a practice in Judaism of the day, a practice in that part of the world of the day. There was no Judaism yet. He had if a man died, the wife would then be given to the brother for her to marry him and to do his duty so that she would have another child in the same family. Provide offspring for your brother. But Onan, knowing that the offspring would not count as his, let the semen spill. He spilled out the semen. I think that's what's called onanism, wherever he joined with his brother's wife, so as to not provide offspring for his brother. What he did was also displeasing to God. This time we know what he did. And God took his life. So it wasn't that we read here that Judah's afraid then, but he may not have known what those two boys did, and maybe he blamed it on Tamar, because it says Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, remain as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up, for he thought he too might die like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. A long time afterwards, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. When her period of mourning was over, Judah went up to Timnah to his sheep bearers, together with his friend Hira the Adullamite, and Tamar was told, your father-in-law is coming up to Timnah for the sheep shearing. So she took off her widow's garb, covered her face with a veil. Wrapping herself up, she sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah was grown up, yet she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he took her for a harlot, for she had covered her face. So he took her aside by the road. He turned aside to her by the road. Here, let me sleep with you, for he didn't know that she was his daughter-in-law. But she asked, what will you pay me for sleeping with me? He replied, I will send a kid from my flock. She said, you must leave a pledge until you have sent it. And he said, what pledge shall I give you? And she said, leave me your seal and cord and the staff which you carry. So he gave him to her and slept with her, and she conceived by him. Then she went on her way. She took off her veil and again put on her widow's garb. Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adullamite to redeem the pledge from the woman, but he couldn't find her. He inquired of the council, the people who always sat at the gate, where's the prostitute, the one at Enaim by the road? And they said, no prostitute here. There hasn't been any. So he returned to Judah and said, I couldn't find her. And moreover, the local council said, there's been no prostitute here. Judah said, okay, let her keep them, lest we become a laughingstock. I did send this kid, but you didn't find her. 3 months later, Judah was told, your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot. In fact, she is pregnant from harlotry. Bring her out. She should be burned to death. As she was being brought out, she sent this message to her father-in-law. It's by the man to whom these things belong that I am pregnant. And she added, and here's where we have the same expression, hakerna. Do you recognize these? Whose seal and cord and staff are these? Judah recognized them and said, she is more righteous than I am, because I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he was not intimate with her again. So we see there's a principle that we read in the Torah. It's called midah keneged midah, measure for measure. What Judah did, they took the lamb, they took the cloak of Joseph, the boys dipped it in sheep's blood. Here he took a sheep to bring back to her. She wasn't there. And he understood very clearly that what he did to Joseph was now being done to him. Do you recognize what you have done? This is a principle that the Torah is constantly trying to teach us. When we do something wrong, measure for measure, it will come back on us. That's why Yeshua said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And Hillel, Rabbi, he was quoting Rabbi Hillel, who said the same thing, but in the opposite way. Do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. To me, that's such a beautiful teaching in the Torah, something we should all remember when we behave a certain way to somebody else. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. While she was in labor, one of them put out a hand, and the midwife tied a crimson thread on that hand to signify this one came out first. But just then it drew back its hand, and out came its brother. And she said, what a breach you have made for yourself. So he was named Peretz. After this, his brother came out, on whose hand was the crimson thread, and he was named Zerach. Now Joseph was taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, the courtier of Pharaoh, and his prefect, which is a type of Egyptian official, bought him from the Ishmaelim who had brought him there. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh was with Joseph. Remember this. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. When we are with God, when God is with us, he makes a way for us to be successful. Not necessarily the wealthiest man in the world, not necessarily the best father in the world, or the best of anything, but he brings us success in the role that he has for us. And he stayed in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that God, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, the creator of the universe, was with him, and that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh lent success to everything he undertook, he took a liking to Joseph, and he made him his personal attendant. You know, God blesses wherever we work. If we work in a company and we walk with God, he blesses us, and he blesses the people. And this is exactly what happened with me. When I came back after my years in the New Age, and I had to completely remake myself. That's a whole other story. And I went to work for a financial planner. Never worked in that industry before. I had to take an exam to learn how to sell mutual funds, to be in marketing and administration for this man. And God blessed me and blessed my boss. And people would call me into their offices, other people in the business, financial planners, and they would ask me, can you tell me what you're doing? What are you doing to me that Brian is all of a sudden so successful? I mean, literally, I brought in millions of dollars for him. And all I could say is, God was with me. They were looking for very concrete answers, and I couldn't give them to them because I had no idea how I did it.
What did Brian think of that?
Brian was scared to death of me.
Really?
Oh, he saw things happen. One day, I have to tell you this. One day, I was working with a base salary and commission, bonuses on the people that I brought in. and how much he would was earning. And one day my bonus was pretty high and he didn't want to give it to me. And he told me, this is just too much. And I said, I just looked at him and I said, you promised this is what you were going to do and you didn't do it. I would be careful if I were you. Well, I just have to tell you, I went home and I just prayed that at the end of the week, Brian got a check from a mutual funds company for the exact amount of the bonus that he was supposed to give me. And he called me into this office and he says, I don't know how this happens or why it happened, but I just received this check and it belongs to you. This is the type of thing that would go on. When God is in your life, unbelievable things happen. I could write books about the things that happened to me walking with God. Anyway, and Joseph was learning this. But remember, Joseph was now a slave, and he was learning how to let the spoiled boy go. He was learning that his pride would get him nowhere. And this Potiphar put him in charge of his household, placing in his hands everything that he owned. From the time that the Egyptian put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, God blessed his house for Joseph's sake, so that the blessing of the God of Israel, the creator of the universe, was upon everything that he owned, inside the house and outside. He left all that he had in Joseph's hands and was with him there. He paid attention to nothing except the food that he ate. Isn't that marvelous? He trusted Joseph so much, he didn't even look at anything he did. But now comes, as the Christians would love to say, Satan made me do it. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a time his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph and said, come and sleep with me. But Joseph was a man of honor, and he refused. And he said to his master's wife, look, with me here, my master gives no thought to anything in this house, and all that he owns he has placed in my hands. He wields no more authority in this house than me. He has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin before my God? He knew it was wrong. The Torah hadn't been written, but God puts his Torah in our hearts from the moment that he breathes life into us. That's what this is showing us. And later, all this would be written so that we would remember, we would know, but it's already inside.
This is also like sometimes people are so they stereotype so much. Men are this, women are this. Of course, men and women are different, but sometimes the stereotypes, like at a trial, a man might say about if he was accused of rape, she asked for it,
Right.
things like that. So it's as if the man is just has no more restraint than an ox or a donkey. And it's
Exactly.
not true. Godly
Exactly.
men, like men have to be accountable, as do women, for their actions. And you
Exactly.
can't use the excuse, well, men can't control themselves. And
Right.
some people said that even anyway, I won't go into anyway, but it's you can't use that excuse.
Exactly. And
You,
that's the
you know, she
value.
was probably a beautiful woman,
She
and
was, it said. It said that. We read it. It says it right here.
that she was beautiful.
Yeah, it says right here. Uh, oh no, it says Joseph was
Joseph
beautiful.
was
Yeah,
beautiful.
Joseph was. Yeah, she probably was. But whatever the story was, we do have restraint. I remember in my days when I was doing hypnotherapy, and I someone said to me, when I open a bag of chips, I can't. I have to eat them all. I can't stop myself. And I looked at them and I said, I would test it all always on myself. And I would say, what do you mean you can't stop yourself? What do you mean you can't have only one chip? And I did it. I proved to myself I could. I didn't always want to, but if I wanted to, I could. It's the motivation of the heart.
Yeah,
And as much as she coaxed Joseph every single day, he did not yield to her
right.
request to lie beside her, to be with her. One day, he came into the house to do his work. None of the household was there inside. And she caught hold of him by his cloak, his garment, and said, lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand and ran away. He fled outside. When she saw that he had left it in her hand and fled outside, she called out to her servants and said to them, look, he had to bring a Hebrew to dally with us. This one came to lie with him, but I screamed out loud. And when he heard me screaming at the top of my voice, he left his cloak, his garment with me, and got away and fled outside. She kept his garment beside her until his master came home. Didn't say her husband, his master. She had it in for him. Then she told him the same story, saying, the Hebrew slave whom you brought into our house came to dally with me. But I screamed at the top of my voice. He left his garment with me and fled outside.
What a wicked woman.
Terrible. When his master, Potiphar, heard the story that his wife told him, namely, thus and so your slave did to me, he was furious.
Mm.
So Joseph's master had him put into prison, where the king's prisoners were confined. Now, this tells me one thing. Yeah, he was furious, but he was furious with his wife. You don't think he knew his wife?
I
Because
think so.
if Joseph, yeah, if if he really believed that Joseph had done that, he would have put him to death or would have thrown him into the worst of the prisons, but he put him where the king's prisoners. These were the best. This was somebody like in the government who's accused of, or maybe like, remember what was her name? Margaret. She had that program where she was a chef, she was a cook. Margaret
Stewart,
Stewart. When she
Martha
was
Stewart.
Martha Stewart, when she was put into prison, she was put in with the best. She wasn't put in with hardened criminals. They have different levels of prison.
Yeah,
This was the king's prisoners. And even while he was in there, in prison, the Lord was with Joseph, extending chesed, kindness, mercy, and disposing the chief jailer favorably toward him. The chief jailer put in Joseph's charge all the prisoners who were in that prison. And he was the one to carry out everything that was done in there. When God is with you, he is with you wherever you are, from the lowest of the prisons to the highest court in the land. The chief jailer did not supervise anything that was in Joseph's charge, same as Potiphar. And I guarantee Potiphar must have said something too to him,
yeah, maybe.
because the Lord, Yud He Vav He, was with him. And whatever he did, Yud He Vav He, Adonai, whatever we want to call him, the creator, the Borei Olam, he made him successful. Now, sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker. Now, the cupbearer is the closest one to the king because he would drink before the king would drink in case someone tried to poison him. And the baker of the king of Egypt did something to offend the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with these two courtiers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the prefect, in the same prison house where Joseph was confined. The prefect assigned Joseph to them, and he attended them. When they had been in custody for some time, both of them, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, had a dream on the same night. Each had his own dream, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that their faces were down to the ground. They were distraught. And he asked them, he asked Pharaoh's courtiers who were with him in custody in the master's house, saying, "What's wrong? Why are you so down today?" And they said to him, "We had dreams, but there's no one to interpret them." So Joseph said to them, "These dreams must have been very special, because everybody has dreams, but they must have been something special about these dreams." Joseph said to them, "Surely God can interpret. Tell me your dreams." He already had known about dreams. He had when he was a teenager. But when he was a teenager, we remember he was the one who took credit for the dreams and their interpretation. But now he's being humbled. And he didn't say, "Tell me I can do it." No, God can interpret them. Then the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph, and he said to him, "In my dream there was a vine in front of me. On the vine were 3 branches. It barely budded, when out came its blossoms, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." And Joseph said to him, "Here's the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will pardon you and restore you to your post. You will place Pharaoh's cup in his hand, as was your custom formerly when you were his cupbearer. But think of me." The word isn't think of me, it says zacharteni. Remember me. Zachor, remember me. Don't forget me. Remember me when everything is going well with you again. And please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh so that I can be free from this place. Have mercy, chesed. Remember me so I can be free. Because the reality is, the truth is, I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews where I'm from. And I've not done anything that they should put me in prison. I'm innocent. When the chief baker saw how favorably he had interpreted the other dream, he said to Joseph, he was excited now. "In my dream, in the same way, were 3 open-work baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket were all kinds of food for Pharaoh that a baker prepares." See, God is using the things that they already do. For one, they use the vineyards, the wine, and here he's using the food. The birds were eating out of it, were eating out of the basket above my head. Joseph answered, "This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale you upon a pole, and the birds will pick off your flesh." Ooh. On the 3rd day, on his birthday, Pharaoh made a banquet for all his officials, and he called out his chief cupbearer and his chief baker from among his officials. And he restored the chief cupbearer to his cupbearing, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But the chief baker he impaled, just as Joseph had interpreted to them. But the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. And that's the end of this parasha, which to me, I love the story. It's absolutely marvelous. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to this, but more and more I see as I read these stories how much we can apply them to our lives each and every day, in small ways, in large ways. But God has plans for us, and things happen when they're going to happen. Joseph was forgotten, and we're going to see next week, forgotten for 2 more years. We want everything to happen immediately. And sometimes We have to be prepared because Joseph would have to go from a slave to the head, the second to Pharaoh. We already know that. And sometimes we want things to happen in our lives, but we're just not ready for them. It's like a person who wins, someone who lives in the lowest of low, and he wins a lotto ticket, and all of a sudden he has $10 million guaranteed. In 7 years, they say, all the money will be gone because he's not prepared to handle the money. He has no idea. The first thing he gets excited, and then he's descended upon by all relatives and friends and every single person. He buys, he wastes, he has no idea the how to take this money and to use it well. So he loses it all. And sometimes we have a gift, we're given a gift, but it takes a long time until we have the wisdom to know how to use this gift. It takes a lifetime. And I look back at my life and my journey through life, and it's prepared me every step of the way to do what I'm doing now. And I still don't know where I'm going. God has, I get so excited because I never know what's waiting around the corner. And we can all say that. And I can say that to you, Miriam, because I know how much your brother means to you. Your family means to you. And your brother is suffering right now. But God does make promises to us. And if God does take your brother, and we pray that he doesn't, he has a reason. And I know that's not comforting to hear when you're mourning, but we have to remember that God has a reason for absolutely everything that happens to us. It doesn't mean that he makes everything happen to us, that he causes it, because we cause a lot of the problems that we have. And not only do we cause it, our parents have caused it before us, and our grandparents have caused it before them, and we have inherited. The world has inherited all the problems that we are facing now. And it didn't start yesterday. It started with Adam and Eve. We have a long way back, but we have a long way to go. And the way the earth began in a Garden of Eden, the earth is going to end in a Garden of Eden. And that's what we have to look forward to. I'm going to be riding my horse Pegasus, riding around the universe. Who knows what we're going to do? But I'm excited. And you're on mute, Miriam. I can't hear you.
Peggy is going
Yes.
to be riding Pegasus.
Peggy, isn't that something?
And that your name is like Peggy Pegasus.
Peggy, Pegasus. And I am a winged messenger,
Yes, yes,
always,
you.
always wanting to bring a message out there to the world from the
It's gonna,
first time.
yeah, it's gonna be a beautiful winged horse.
I'll be a beautiful. And what are you going to be? You're going to be my warrior. You're the Martian.
And now I'm gonna be in a meadow.
You'll be in a meadow. Yes.
I love
Anyway,
meadow.
it was a wonderful message today. Thank you for those who are listening on the outside. Thank you, Miriam, for participating, for being in here. Brian, Richard, and Jerry, I want to wish you all a wonderful rest of the week. When we used to do this on Wednesday night, I would say Shabbat Shalom, but Tuesdays we still have enough week to remember that we still have more days before Shabbat. So I want to wish you a wonderful rest of the week, as I said, and I look forward to our rabbi's message on Shabbat. Have a great evening. Sleep well,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a good week.
You too. Thanks.